Hello and welcome to AmeriCorps Vista. We are super excited to be with you on your first day of service and glad to have you joining this webinar. Again, my name is Chris Hawks and I'm joined here with my colleague, Andy King. Hey, Andy.
Hey, Chris, and hi, everyone. We'll be your host today from AmeriCorps. You'll also see our colleagues, Gina, Jake, Charles, and Eric in the chat and Q&A. They're here to support you and answer your questions as we go. And as Chris mentioned, we have our webinar support team to help with any technical issues. So if you have that, just raise your hand. But we've got plenty of support for you throughout the presentation.
And we are also super thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. So let me welcome the Director of AmeriCorps Vista, Meg Ansara, as she happily provides a welcome on behalf of the AmeriCorps Vista program to you on your first day of service. Hey, Meg.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
Yes, hey.
Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first day of service on what is going to be an exciting year. I just started, I'm also at the beginning of my Vista journey. I started in the director role about 2 months ago. So we are learning together, but I wanted to just take a few minutes to introduce myself and also talk a little bit about this moment in time and the opportunity that, that really lies before you. So for starters, in terms of my background, Vista has always loomed large in my life. I am not an alum, just going to get that right out of the way. But my stepmother, who's one of my biggest role models in life, was. She was a Vista in 1973 in Kansas City. And it was a transformational experience for her and one that she referenced throughout her life. And so it really has loomed large for me. I did start my career through service with AmeriCorps. Actually, I served with the Student Conservation Association and spent a summer as a wildland firefighter, which was quite an adventure for me, having grown up in the East Coast. For the last 20 years, I have kind of spent my time working on political campaigns and also with nonprofits. I've worked on 3 presidential campaigns at the state and local level. I've worked with local and national nonprofits, mostly focused on public education. And I also started a company and founded a nonprofit that focuses on developing organizers from diverse and local communities. So I've done a lot of things in the last 20 years, and so many of them actually draw from my experience serving. You know, as a firefighter, which I went on to do for more than just 1 season, I learned what it was like to work in a team, how to make hard choices, and also the personal knowledge that I can do hard things. So a lot dates back to that first service experience for me. Despite all these different hats that I've worn, my kind of guiding beliefs at my core, I'm a community organizer. And my work and my life is really driven by the following beliefs: that people coming together can do great things. The best way to approach problems is to think at a systems level. And those who are impacted need to be engaged in all solutions. And that's really what Vista is about. And that's what drives our projects. That's what drives our Vistas. That's what the program has always been about. And that's what next year is going to be about for you as well. The needs in our country right now are immense. You don't need me to tell you that we are facing, several interlocking crises that are going to continue to define our country and our world. We are in the midst of a historical global pandemic. We have an economy that's been battered by recession and the generational crisis, sort of the existential crisis of our time with climate change. And all of these have really shown a light and exacerbated what are persistent inequities in our economy, in our society, and in our nation. And so the needs are tremendous. but I believe that the opportunity is even greater. And as the president likes to say, not only can we meet the moment right now, but we can truly build back better. So how do we take this moment of so many crises and think about how not just to return, but ultimately how to support people long-term to do better? You are beginning a journey today that is really exciting. You are part of a history of a program that dates back to 1965. So VISTA is the oldest program within AmeriCorps and is incredibly special. We got our start with the War on Poverty, and you are now a part of that tradition, a 50+ year program, and that should bring you comfort and inspiration. You are going to have a chance to make a difference in the lives of individuals, communities, and our country. And at the end of the day, VISTA is about taking action, helping others, and personal growth. So I encourage you to make the most of the year ahead. Never forget that you are part of a larger community that is here for you and a long-standing tradition that you are going to help to shape. We are so glad that you're here and now a part of the AmeriCorps VISTA family. Thank you for serving, and I cannot wait to see the impact that you will be a part of moving forward. Good luck. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Meg, and thank you for those wonderful comments, inspirational comments, and hearing your story. It's much appreciated and great to hear the positive words of welcome for our soon-to-be newest class of AmeriCorps members in the VISTA program. So thanks so much, Meg. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I'll say it's always great to hear from you, Meg. Well, let's take a look quickly at our agenda for today. We'll talk a little bit about how VISTA began back in the mid-1960s. We'll cover a few pieces of your orientation phases, again, sort of looking at that big picture. We'll discuss your service assignments, review some resources that we think are helpful, and then we will officially swear you in to your AmeriCorps service. So here's a session overview. First and foremost, we've asked you again to log on today to continue to build connections with us here at AmeriCorps and also with your fellow AmeriCorps members coming on. And as I mentioned, we'll swear you in a little bit later in the session. So this is a great way for you to meet, at least briefly, some other incoming AmeriCorps members and start building connections with your colleagues. So we'll also take some time today to reinforce some of the important details of your AmeriCorps service. And finally, we want you to leave today with a really good sense of where you can find answers to any remaining questions that you might have. All right, so Chris, do you want to kick us off?
Definitely. Thanks, Andy. It is a pleasure to give you this official welcome to AmeriCorps VISTA and wish you a very happy first day of service. So for starters, let's take a look at a few milestones in VISTA's history that led us all to this moment. So VISTA is at its core a program that expands economic opportunity to help Americans escape poverty. As complex as poverty is, we certainly know that it takes a wide variety of strategies and dedicated community members to fight it. We certainly look forward to hearing how you and your VISTA project will work on expanding economic opportunity in your community. VISTA was born out of the Civil Rights Movement and the War on Poverty in the mid-1960s, as Meg just mentioned. And we remain passionate about the ideals that founded the program and committed to keep investing in and lifting up all communities in this country. Our first VISTAs were assigned in 1965, and they served in Appalachia, in Hartford, Connecticut, and in the camps of migrant farm workers in California. At the VISTA program launch, President Lyndon Johnson said to those first VISTAs, "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, for you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation. The dedication of VISTA members remains a great hope for this country. We know that VISTA alone can't fix the systemic barriers and oppression that exist for people in poverty, especially people of color, but we know our work can be a part of any possible solution. Here on this slide, you see the VISTA program structure that we looked at during last week's webinar. You can see the AmeriCorps headquarters on the far left with the AmeriCorps regional offices next. In the regional offices, AmeriCorps awards VISTA projects to sponsoring organizations, which are those nonprofits and public agencies that tackle poverty in a variety of projects in diverse communities. And we note that because within that organizational structure, VISTA members, project staff, sponsors, and AmeriCorps staff work together to accomplish these types of results. So in the last year, VISTA's raised over $194 million in cash and in-kind donations for their sponsoring organizations. VISTA's recruited, trained, and assigned over 700,000 community volunteers who collectively served more than 7.5 million hours. VISTA members made it possible for their sponsors to serve 2.4 million children living in poverty in after-school programs, tutoring, and assistance in food security. And programs supported by VISTA members engaged 14,000 veterans and military families in service. And in a single year, over 8,000 VISTA members built the capacity of more than 4,500 nonprofits and public agencies. So that's a lot, and that's just a snapshot of 1 year of AmeriCorps VISTA service. And we are so proud to support this work around the country and certainly looking forward to what you will be doing. Okay, so let's take a look at the sponsoring organizations. In the last year, there were 832 sponsoring organizations managing 849 VISTA projects. Together, the sponsors and project staff placed VISTA members at over 5,000 service sites in 1 year. Of all VISTA service sites, in general, about 15% represent rural communities and 85% represent urban communities. And it's very important to know that there are several different types, there are 3 different types of VISTA project structures. Some projects place all VISTA members at a single nonprofit or agency, which are called single site projects. By contrast, about 16% of projects place members at multiple sites or offices in different locations. And then the third project model is an intermediary. And that's an organization that manages all of the administrative aspects of the AmeriCorps award and subcontracts with more than one nonprofit organization to recruit, train, and manage VISTA members at multiple locations. And the project models are important because they do have a pretty big impact on every aspect of your VISTA service. So for that reason, we want to get a sense of the type of projects represented today. So we're going to bring up a poll and ask, are you serving in a single site project, a multi-site project, or through an intermediary? And see those answers coming in, please keep them coming. If for whatever reason you don't see the poll, you can type in the chat whether you're serving at a single site, multi-site, or intermediary, or not sure. So we'll give it a few seconds. Again, just a quick recap. So single site, where a project places all members at a single nonprofit or agency. A multi-site is when it's the same nonprofit or agency, but multiple locations. And the intermediary is that organization that manages the admin aspects and then awards and subcontracts with more than one nonprofit organization. Okay, so we will end the polling to see, and it looks like, okay, 52% at single site. Then, some at multi-site, some intermediary, 15 and 10%, and then 23%, about a quarter, are not sure. And that's okay. At this point, you may not know the answer to this question. That's perfectly okay. But we do bring it up here because if you aren't sure, please add it to the list of questions for your supervisor this week, and just to make sure you're completely aware of the project design at the project you'll be working at, the staffing structure, and the organizational requirements. It'll be helpful to bring that up to your supervisors as one of your questions this week.
All right. So as you know, VISTA's mission is to strengthen organizations that alleviate poverty through the mobilization of volunteers and resources. And supporting this mission, there are 4 key program principles that apply to all of VISTA service. Ending poverty. Every VISTA project and every VISTA member aims to end or alleviate poverty, one person, one family, or one neighborhood at a time. Empowering communities. VISTA members live among and involve community members in planning and carrying out their projects. And this is often facilitated by a VISTA project sponsor, and we all work together to strengthen and improve communities. This is really the VISTA program's long-term goal through learning about values and beliefs and applying good community development principles. Next is creating sustainable solutions. So whatever it is that you develop or create, whether it's a process, some system, or some kind of resource, you'll develop them in such a way that people will be able to use them once your VISTA service ends. And finally is building capacity. All VISTA members will increase the size of a project or increase the number of people that are served, somehow improve the project's efficiency or otherwise improve the project's impact on the community. So these are the ways that we define capacity, and it's how we think about evaluating the success of our projects and our members. So let's take a few minutes now to hear from you. In the chat, please answer these questions. Which of the key principles resonate most deeply with you? And say just a few words about why. So maybe it's ending poverty and taking down all of the policies and systems that perpetuate it. Maybe it's about empowering the community, that's your passion, and working with community stakeholders. Or maybe sustainability is something that drew you to joining the VISTA program in AmeriCorps. You know, maybe you have an eye for processes and developing them in a way that they can be used once your service is done. Or maybe it's capacity building. That's at the heart of who you are. Maybe you see a project and you can identify a plan to increase its effectiveness and get more people engaged. So it's great to see so many of you weighing in here, and it's almost too fast to read, but I'm really, really gratified to see, such a variety, but then of course to see some of the themes that are really, really sort of raising to the top. And one of them that stands out, at least from my quick read, is around empowering communities. Which is great because we really want to avoid the situation where, someone swoops in from outside and says, I know what you need. This actually comes at it from the other direction, right? Where we're working with the community and helping the community to voice what it itself is identifying and then getting them involved and empowered to make the difference. So terrific. Right, mutual. I see that come up a few times as well. So we're going to look at those a little more deeply after the session, and we welcome you to continue to contribute to that. But the good thing is that all of these, whichever of the principles that you identified, they're all important, and I hope you'll find all of them to be useful at some point in your service. And the fact that these resonate with you shows that you're a good fit for VISTA. So hopefully as you look at what you'll be doing in your service, you'll be able to pinpoint some activities that touch on most or hopefully all of these principles. And as you probably know, progress in this type of work can be incremental, and it can feel that it's really slow going. So it's important to know that our work isn't just about fixing stuff. It's about sharing perspectives and skills, and the results of your work may not be apparent immediately, but once you step back, you'll be able to see the larger changes that have resulted from your work and the impact of your service. So next, let's focus on capacity building and what that looks like. So capacity building can be a hard concept to define and describe to others, and so it's important that we all share a common understanding of this key principle. In the mission, or rather the VISTA mission and program tutorial that you completed, you learned that your VISTA service should focus on building the capacity of your organization and the community rather than on performing direct service. So this is a unique aspect of the VISTA program, which sets us apart from other AmeriCorps programs. So quickly, capacity building in essence is about helping your organization do more with what they have so that they can serve more people or operate more efficiently. Direct service, in contrast, is about providing some tangible assistance directly to those who need it. And to make sure that you understand and have a really good feel for what we're talking about, we're going to play a quick round of this or that to explore the differences between capacity building and direct service. So for this activity, we will use the chat and you'll type your answer. The answer is going to be either capacity building or direct service, and feel free to use the abbreviations CB and DS. All right, so you ready to play? First up.
Okay, first up, recruiting volunteers to build houses. So yeah, as Andy mentioned, just enter in the chat whether you think it's capacity building or direct service, and see a lot of answers coming in. It could be just CB or DS. And a lot of answers coming in fast, and it looks like it's a majority CB. I don't even know if I've seen a DS sprinkled in. That's rare. It's rare to kind of get this 100% all on one side, but to give
they've been studying.
Right at the end, we see a DS. Okay, so let's see what the answer is. Thank you for the responses, and the correct response is capacity building. So thank you for those correct answers. Almost everyone got that correct. And just a few details here. It's capacity building because in this scenario you're not directly building the house. You are developing capacity by recruiting volunteers who will then be able to do the construction work or engage with the organization in other ways. So that's the reason for capacity building here. So thank you.
All right, so how about this one? Delivering meals to seniors or people with disabilities in their homes. Capacity building or direct service. All right, so moving very quickly, and it looks pretty unanimous so far. Yeah, I think I haven't seen any in capacity building. So let's go ahead and reveal the answer, which you already know, and that is that this is in fact direct service. And of course, that's because in this example, you would be actually packing up the food, delivering it to people, directly the recipients. So if you were to think about, is there capacity building activities that could be involved with a meal delivery program? Well, of course there are, and those could look like developing policies and procedures for the program, or creating partnerships getting other organizations or volunteer groups to help with food delivery. All right, great, thanks so much. Move on to the next one.
Okay, next one, how about teaching a financial literacy course to low-income individuals? So capacity building or direct service? Again, see the answers coming in quick, fast, and mostly one-sided. I think I saw maybe a couple CVs in there, maybe a little slightly more of a mix. Y'all are doing very well on this, and but it's mostly direct service, and that is the correct response, direct service. And that's because in this example, it involves hands-on educating individuals. So in contrast, if it were to be capacity building, an activity for a VISTA might be developing the curriculum maybe for the financial literacy course, or connecting with other organizations who can refer clients to take the course. That would be capacity building. Or maybe identifying financial literacy experts to advise the curriculum development. But thank you for your responses, and we'll move on to the next one.
All right, so this is our last example. What do you think about organizing a fundraiser? Is that capacity building or direct service? So a fundraising event, and I'm seeing a lot of CVs. A couple DS in here. It looks, oh, there's a mix maybe. Someone thinks it could be some of each. All right, so looks like the vast majority says capacity with a few others sprinkled in. Let's go ahead and reveal, at least from our vantage point, we think of fundraising as capacity building. And the reason we think that is because you're actually raising resources, that is funding that creates capacity for the organization, right? The money itself, builds resources so that the organization can do its work. All right, well, thank you all for your responses here on these scenarios. We hope that this quick little exercise provides a little clearer distinction between capacity building and direct service.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Y'all did wonderful on that. Great responses. Okay, so let's just looking at our agenda, seeing where we're at. So far we've reviewed some of the really important aspects of the VISTA program to help you build out your understanding and ability to answer that "what is VISTA" question. And next up, we'll quickly review several key tasks to complete during your VISTA member orientation. So here's another look at the VISTA, at the structure of your VISTA member orientation, or VMO. And as we discussed last week, there are 3 phases. And whether you're physically on site or teleserving, the structure is really the same. And as a reminder, this structure is also reflected in the VISTA member orientation checklist that we discussed last week. There's also a link to that in the helpful links handout that was sent this morning. And you can also find a link to that checklist in the chat. We'll be posting it just in just a second. It'll be posted to the chat if you don't have access to that. And also, as a reminder, you were invited to participate in an online name-based criminal history background check prior to your start of service. So if for any reason, if you have not submitted the required information for the background check, or did not receive that email notification with instructions to complete the background check, or for any reason, please just email vistafingerprint@cns.gov. If for any reason you haven't completed that, if you have completed it and you haven't heard back, that's good. No news is good news in that regard. And just as kind of a refresher from last week's webinar, here we have a couple of review questions. These will be really quick regarding benefits. So in just a second, a poll will open and we'll just ask you to indicate true or false. Again, this will be pretty quick. So true or false, federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. Answer in the poll. And again, if you, and you can see some responses in the chat. So if you, for whatever reason, can't view the poll, yep, please, by all means, just type T or F in the chat. Okay, looks like most have answered, so we'll close it out, and most selected true. We had a sprinkle of false in there. So the correct answer is true. Most of you got that correct. Federal taxes are withheld from your living allowance, but state taxes are not. Remember that you are responsible for determining if you will owe state taxes by you can check with your tax preparer or the comptroller to check on state taxes. Okay, we have just a couple more quick ones for you.
All right, so for this one, we will use the chat. So please fill in the blank. If you originally elect the education award, you may change to the cash stipend at any time before the end of your blank month of service. Right, so I see so many responses coming in, and they're pretty much, I mean, I've seen just a couple of numbers that are not 10. So I think you all got it. This is a really smart group. Pay attention. So thank you for that. Yeah, virtually all of you got it correct. Great job. So we've got one more.
Okay, this will be another poll question, so a yes or no. So if you currently have or have completed enrollment in other primary healthcare coverage outside of AmeriCorps, then the healthcare allowance is for you. Again, if you currently have primary healthcare coverage outside of AmeriCorps, the healthcare allowance benefit is for you. As y'all remember, we were talking about the two different options for the health benefit. There's the healthcare allowance and the health benefit plan. And just give it another couple seconds. Looks like most have responded. And this one is a little less unanimous, it's looking like. So we'll close the poll. We're at 78% yes and 22% no. And the correct answer is yes. So most got that correct. Great job. That's for those that got it incorrect. That's why we asked the questions, just as a quick refresher. So again, yeah, the healthcare allowance would be the option for you if you have healthcare coverage. The healthcare allowance is the one where you can be reimbursed for out-of-pocket expenses. So again, please remember to look at the specific details of the VISTA healthcare benefit on the VISTA campus so you know which benefit may be applicable to your situation. So thank you all for the responses. This will be helpful in selecting some questions to answer during our Q&A later as well. So thank you. Okay, let's talk about some important issues that you learned about in the Civil Rights and Responsibilities course on the VISTA campus. The VISTA program takes very seriously the issues of discrimination and harassment. So we want to make sure you're all aware of your rights as well as your responsibilities. As you learn, discrimination is when receiving treatment that is different because of a difference in sex, race, or any other protected class. Harassment is behavior that is severe or pervasive and creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. If you believe that you have experienced or witnessed discrimination or harassment, and if you feel safe and comfortable doing so, here are the steps you should take. So first, approach and talk directly to the person you suspect of engaging in harassing or discriminating behavior. If that does not work, or if you do not feel safe and comfortable doing so, you should talk to your supervisor. If you cannot go to your supervisor, or maybe you do and the matter is not resolved to your satisfaction, you should then contact your AmeriCorps regional office. And then finally, you can contact the AmeriCorps Equal Opportunity Program, or EOP. Rights go hand in hand with responsibilities. So while you have the right to a service experience that is free from harassment and discrimination, you also have the responsibility not to subject anyone to harassment or discrimination. So please be conscious of how your words and actions might be perceived by others, whether that's fellow AmeriCorps members, staff at your site, or community members. And you can see the contact information at the bottom of the slide for EOP, for the AmeriCorps Equal Opportunity Program. This information is also found in the member handbook on the VISTA campus, as well as in the helpful links handout that was emailed this morning. There's some information there. So if you ever need to find this phone number, the best place would be the VISTA member handbook that's located on the VISTA campus. And VISTA is a federal program, and like anything supported by taxpayer funds, we need to ensure that the program is well run, doing what it's supposed to, and spending money wisely. And like all federal agencies, AmeriCorps has an Inspector General whose office is responsible for preventing and detecting waste, fraud, and abuse. Most VISTA sponsors are very familiar with the rules around allowable service activities and those that are prohibited. And it is important for all of us to pay close attention to these. And so there are a few red flags that just want to make sure you're aware of. So if you are being asked to take over the work of a staff person, for example, someone who is out on extended leave, that is considered replacing staff, and it's not allowed in the VISTA program. Or if most of what you're doing is administrative support for someone else, that's also not appropriate work for a VISTA member. You should be focusing on the things outlined in your VAD, or VISTA Assignment Description, which ties directly to the overall project plan that was approved by AmeriCorps staff. And also, the majority of your work should be capacity building, not direct service. From your coursework and our activities that we just did, where you all did so well, you have a good idea how to distinguish between the two, between capacity building and direct service. So please pay close attention and follow up if you are unsure about your service assignments. If you feel you're being asked to do things that maybe you don't feel are appropriate for VISTA members, first talk about it with your supervisor. From there, you can speak with your AmeriCorps regional office. And if the issue isn't resolved, or if you wish to remain anonymous, you can contact the AmeriCorps Office of Inspector General with the information you see here at the bottom of the slide. And again, this info is included in the handout for this session and can also be found in the VISTA member handbook on the VISTA campus.
All right, so now let's take another look at the in-service phase of your VISTA member orientation. So today, you're starting your on-site orientation and training, or what we call OSOT, which typically is led by the supervisor, and it'll happen at your project site if you are there, or it'll be happening remotely with others who are from that project. And in addition to that, there are 7 courses that we ask all VISTAs to complete early on in their service. These, again, are self-directed, online resources, and they're intended to help you start strong in your project. First, there's a guide to help you make the most out of your on-site orientation and training. There's something called the Minute Intro exercise, and it helps you to clearly and succinctly explain to others who you are and what you'll be doing as an AmeriCorps member. The resource on theories of change looks at different ideas about what causes poverty and then the theories on how to reduce or eliminate it. There's a helpful video that explains how poverty is measured in the United States. There's a worksheet that you can use to unpack your VISTA assignment description and then use it as a foundation for your work plan for the whole year. We have a tutorial on how to understand the community that you're serving by looking at demographic data and research. That's what we call creating a community profile. And finally, there's a video, a pretty powerful video, I think, that shares 13 lessons about poverty that have come out of the AmeriCorps VISTA program. So the worksheets and resources are intended to dovetail nicely with the on-site orientation and training that your supervisor is providing. And these can actually provide some structure for the first few meetings that you have with your supervisor. All right, so now let's turn our attention to your specific service and the document that rules it all, your VISTA Assignment Description, or VAD. We talked a little bit on last week's webinar that each member has a VAD, and the VAD was created by the project where the VISTA is serving. Now, you may have received a copy of yours during the interview process, or maybe your AmeriCorps supervisor gave it to you today. If you don't have a copy, you can download your VAD from your account in My AmeriCorps. All VISTA assignment descriptions include 3 elements. There's a project goal, objectives, and member activities. The project goal is related to, or it's identical to, the overall goal of the project that you're serving on. The objectives describe what you will achieve by the end of your service year. And the objectives sort of serve as a bridge between that big overall project goal and what it is that you're going to do as an AmeriCorps member. And so what you're going to do is what we call member activities. And these activities specify exactly what you will be doing this year. So your activities will add up to the objectives, and the objectives add up to the overall goal. And because the VISTA assignment description is really the starting point for you to develop a work plan for the year, we recommend that you focus on it with your supervisor in the next few weeks, and then keep it in mind as you move through your entire year. It's relatively common that some adjustments will need to be made to the VAD at some point during your year, and that could be to reflect some new activities that are required. And it can be especially true given the current situation, with the pandemic impacting so many parts of our lives and our work. And as we mentioned earlier, there's a VAD worksheet that's part of the early service coursework. And you can find all of that coursework on the Starting Vista page of the Vista campus. That's where you've been doing all your other pre-service coursework. So the worksheet, and you see it on the screen here, it provides a nice framework for you and your supervisor to talk through your tasks step by step.
Okay, we'd like to hear from you again. So based on what you know about your VAD, about your VISTA assignment description, what will you be doing as an AmeriCorps member? What steps or tasks, so difficult for me to say, tasks, or activities will you be doing to help eradicate poverty and build capacity in your community and in your organization? So again, please type your answer in the chat. And again, also, please toggle it, especially here, to so it's being sent to all panelists and attendees. That way everyone can view these responses. And this can be, a couple of words or a brief sentence or longer if you like. So we'll just give it a few seconds. See a lot of responses coming in, but want to make sure you all get a chance to respond to what you will be doing as an AmeriCorps member and able to kind of read through some of these responses from your colleagues in the field. This is always a great part of VMO for me, to see what you all will be doing throughout your service year. And going a little too fast to read through all of them right now, but like Andy mentioned earlier, we do like to read through these after in full after the webinar. So seeing some of the responses, and again, it's probably going too fast for me, but it's, data tracking, community engagement and volunteer service, building capacity to help develop green projects, working with local farmers for food sustainability. Wow,
yeah, Chris, I was really impressed to see that the key principles of VISTA were showing up here. So people saying building capacity to engaging the community in anti-poverty efforts, sustainability.
Yes, exactly.
This is a really advanced group.
Yeah. Already, tying the key points into this. Yes, perfect. It's perfect. Y'all are off to a good start in your VISTA service. We can already tell. Great. So yes, love it. Love the responses. Please keep these responses coming in. Love to see them. It's truly remarkable to see the wide variety of work you will be doing in your communities and how much you'll be doing this year as well. We love it. So again, if you're mid-response, please continue typing that. And we know, a ton of really wonderful things mentioned in the chat, and we actually want to take this discussion a bit further. So we want to talk about what happens as a result of your service. So saw some mentions of community planning, but if we look at a community meeting, for example, so what if you plan a community meeting? If you bring people together around a common issue, what is the impact of that activity? Or
what if you write grant proposals? How will writing a grant actually make a difference in the community?
In recruiting volunteers. So what if you recruit volunteers for your project? So why specifically would it be important to have other people help with your project?
And what if you write a lesson plan? What purpose does the lesson plan achieve, and how will it impact others within the community? So the big question we ask here is, what if? And we ask this because we want you to reflect on why you are serving. Why is it that you're here? What is it to be done? And really, what's the big reason? Taking time to think about the reason behind your activities and the purpose of the things that you're doing will help you understand and stay focused on the intended impact of your AmeriCorps service. So thinking about your own what if when answering this next question. Oops, I think I went ahead on the slide. There we go. It's back. So here's the question. What impact do you hope to make as a VISTA member? And by impact, I mean, what will be the end result rather than what will your activities look like? So what will happen in your community when you are successful? So again, use the chat, drop that in here. And ask you to think about this question as you go through your year of service, right? Our work is never done, and you're a big part of the battle against poverty, and we're all working in this together. So keeping the impact that you hope to make in mind can help you get through, when things start to get all complicated or, some challenges come up. Knowing what it is you're hoping to accomplish may help you feel like actually you are making some progress, even when it's a little bit tough to see. So some great ideas coming in here. And I see you're really framing it in that kind of future language, like here's what will be, this is what it will look like. Whether it's an empowered community, whether it's additional resources, food security for students, lower disease rates, economic empowerment and stability in families and communities. Yeah, so you've got it. You really get what we mean when we talk about what is your impact. All right, so feel free to keep sharing your ideas there, and also make sure you're sending them to all panelists and attendees. That way your colleagues will be able to see what you're saying. You know, I find your statements really inspiring here, and I think your colleagues will as well. So hopefully, as you're looking at them, you may see some comments from colleagues that may spark an idea in yourself.
Great. So with all of those great outcomes and activities and projects and communities, all those in mind, it's time to make you official AmeriCorps members. So you may remember from the introductions in last week's webinar, the Countdown to Vista Service webinar, that we are all located in different communities. Andy and I are working at home. Andy's in DC, I'm in Maryland, and here's a quick look at where you are serving across the country, encompassing quite a bit of the country. So imagine, if you will, all of these AmeriCorps faces on screen with you taking the oath together. And first off, let's shortly or very quickly just kind of discuss the oath of service. The oath of service is a required and important step in becoming an AmeriCorps member. And because of its importance, we're actually just going to pause the chat for temporarily, just for a few moments, just to focus on the oath. If you have any questions at this time, you could still type those questions in the Q&A. And again, our team will either answer them as soon as we can or hold them for the end of the webinar when we have our Q&A session.
Okay, so to document that you're taking the oath today, there's a very short form in My AmeriCorps. So it's good to know that this is a quick process, but we have just a few instructions to help you complete the oath form accurately. So first up, after we end today's webinar, you'll receive an automated email letting you know that your electronic oath form has been unlocked in your account at My AmeriCorps. And it's only at that time, after it's been unlocked, that you can then log into your account and complete the form and submit it. If you don't see the email after 15 minutes or so, then just go ahead and log into your account anyway and look for the form. The tricky thing is, if you log in before the form is unlocked, you might not see it or it might not appear. So then you have to log out and log back in. So we know you're eager and you really want to get that form filled out. But just be patient and wait for that email, or wait at least 15 minutes after we log off so that that form will appear when you go and log in. So that's the first thing. The second is the instructions for filling out the form are pretty simple, but it's got to be done correctly. So we're going to go over a few of the details and we'll kind of walk through them slowly just to make sure that you've got it. It's easy to, misspell something or get a date wrong. So we just want to make sure you've got it all exactly right. That way, when your form goes in first time, it'll be perfect, it'll be accepted. And I want you to know that if anything is missing on the form, or if it's not correct, we're going to have to send it back to you and have you redo it. So that could just create a little bit of a delay in getting you or getting everybody on this call today activated and enrolled for all your benefits. All right, so let's see. We'll take a look now at the details for filling out that oath form. So here you see the specific instructions. The first field is the date of your first day of service at your project site. That is today. So that's 4/12/2021. And you might want to write these down or take a photograph of the screen once they're all filled in so that you'll have it. All right, so next up, the name of the CNCS or AmeriCorps official who administered and witnessed the oath, that is Chris Hawkes. So it's C-H-R-I-S, Hawkes, H-A-W-K-E-S. So, please note the correct spelling of Chris's name so that when you go to type it in, you'll be able to do it correctly. And then in the electronic signature field, type your full legal name and type it the way that it's already there in your AmeriCorps account, in My AmeriCorps, right? So when you log in and you look at the top, you'll see your name. I think it's in the upper left corner. Just type your name the same way. Don't come up with an alias at this point, because if it doesn't match, we'll have to have you do it over. Then below the signature is a checkbox. Check that and verify that that is your legal signature in the electronic form, and click the submit button, which you don't see on the screen here, but you'll see it when you are in your account. So it's pretty straightforward. We know that. The thing is to get the date right, today's date for your first day of service, and the spelling of Chris's name. All right, back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Andy. Sorry, I was on mute a second. Great. So now that the logistics are out of the way, let's consider the oath you're about to take. Now, this is the same oath taken by all federal employees up to and including the vice president, whereas the president's oath is slightly different. In the oath, it includes the phrase, to defend the Constitution of the United States. So if we look at the word defend, this is not a call to arms. For some, in some positions, it may be. But for most of us, defense of the Constitution may be just the opposite of using arms. We're pledging to defend the document that contains our civil rights. It also includes the phrase, against all enemies. So if we look at the word enemies, in the context of VISTA, the enemy is poverty. Here on this slide, you can see the original oath on the left, along with an alternative version on the right side of your screen. The alternative provides two changes that you may prefer. So first, you may replace the word swear with the word affirm if you so choose. And you may omit the phrase, so help me God, at the end of the oath if you'd like. And I want to recognize that since we're all in different locations around the country, scattered in so many sites and so many locations, that we don't have the benefit of hearing each other's voices as we recite this. But it's pretty cool to know that you're taking the oath with about right around 220 of your fellow AmeriCorps members, all doing this at the exact same time, doing the same thing, same time, all across America. So I mentioned that because it may seem a little awkward if you're going to recite the oath aloud, if you're alone in a room right now, or maybe you're teleserving at home and you have roommates or family members nearby, or if you're in office and you have a new colleague that you just met today nearby. It could seem a little awkward, but please remember that we are all right here with you, doing the same thing at the same time. So please raise your right hand and recite the oath with me. And just to note, I will be reciting the alternative oath on the right-hand side. I'll just be speaking slowly, and please recite after me. Let's do it. I do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. Woohoo! Yay! Congratulations!
Yeah, all right.
At least see that is. You are now an AmeriCorps member. So congrats on joining the newest group of VISTA members. Okay, great. Yeah, and as for the oath form, here's a screenshot. This is what Andy was referencing just a couple slides ago to see what it will look like in your My AmeriCorps account. Again, it's about 15 minutes after the webinar when you'll see this appear. And as a reminder, the oath form must be submitted with that correct information today by midnight tonight your time. And on this slide, just to make sure, again, you have the correct details to complete that electronic oath form. Just a quick reminder, it's going to ask you for the date. So your first day of service should be today, April 12th. If for any reason your first day of service is not today, just shoot us an email, let us know, and we'll go through that on what next steps might be. And then the second field, enter my name, Chris Hawks. Yeah, the odd spelling with the ES at the end, just note that for the, there's a field labeled the name of CNCS or AmeriCorps official who administered the oath. And then you're just going to type your full name under the member's e-signature and then check the box under the e-signature to constitute the e-signature as a legal signature on the oath form. And again, to submit it by midnight this evening. So also just a note that you will not get a response confirming submission of the oath form. So you won't get like a email response once you submit it, but you will be able to see the submitted oath in your My AmeriCorps account. There will be a little a note at the bottom noting submission and what time and date it was submitted. But for anyone who maybe does not submit the oath or submits it incorrectly, the VMSU will be in contact with you to either have you submit it or to make any corrections that may be needed.
All right, so let's do a quick check on our agenda. With you officially sworn in, we've got just a few final items to cover before we say farewell. So as a reminder, the VISTA campus has a couple of features that are designed to help you connect with other AmeriCorps members in the VISTA program. We mentioned it quickly last week, but if you haven't already, you might want to check out the VISTA map and the VISTA forums, the forums especially. You know, it's a discussion board where you can ask questions, reach out with, you know, a need that you might have, or share ideas or tips, or what you've learned or what works for you. You know, and as you're getting settled into service, and then even as you move through your year, the forums particularly are a great way to reach out to your colleagues and connect with them early and often. So let's talk a little bit about identifying yourself with not only your fellow VISTA members, but with the AmeriCorps program overall. So one of the things we think that's great about being part of the program is kind of showing off your AmeriCorps pride. And you never know really where you might make a connection with somebody who already knows about the program or someone who doesn't, but they're curious to learn more. So we've got some ideas here. You can put the AmeriCorps logo on your business card and your email signature, and hopefully it's already on your organization's website or brochures that they have. The more visible that you are, and if you are, you know, sharing the AmeriCorps name and brand, the more support that you may be able to get for your project, but also really for the whole AmeriCorps program overall. And that can mean more AmeriCorps members and more communities doing the work that needs to get done. The helpful links handout that Chris has sent to you, it includes links to where you can download AmeriCorps logos, some publications, fact sheets that we have about the program, and some other stuff that you can use in your office to represent AmeriCorps. And during your service, in a few weeks, I believe, you will receive instructions by email on how you can order your free AmeriCorps gear. So what do we mean when we say gear? Well, that includes an AmeriCorps polo shirt, a lapel pin, a tote bag, a t-shirt, a water bottle, and a journal. The ordering instructions are going to come to you by email, as I said, so make sure that we have the correct email address in your account in My AmeriCorps, and then just watch your inbox. And lastly, we invite you to share any service photos or training photos or, maybe articles or things that coverage you get in the press. Share that with us through social media, right? So we have the AmeriCorps, AmeriCorps Vista Twitter and Facebook channels. So connect with us there. We'd love to see your stories and retweet and repost what it is that you're doing.
And here's another look at the resource list you received last week as a handout. Again, this is also available on the Starting Vista page of the Vista campus. So whether it's questions about sick leave or healthcare benefits, pay schedule, policy, this list really points you in the right direction, and it's highly recommended to maybe have it bookmarked, or if you want to save it, you can save it as a PDF. There are changes every now and then to the contact information, so if you do save it to your desktop, just keep that in mind that every once in a while there are changes, so you may want to bookmark it. For benefits questions, you can also contact the benefits administrator directly as indicated on this resource and contact sheet. And looking a little further ahead, as you settle into your AmeriCorps year, be on the lookout for networks of current AmeriCorps members and alumni in your area. They may be organized by AmeriCorps programs or state commissions, and you can find contacts at AmeriCorpsAlums.org. And along with building your AmeriCorps network, there will also be a number of training opportunities this year to help you continue to develop professionally. Our Vista training unit staff deliver a series of monthly webinars for AmeriCorps Vista members, leaders, and project supervisors, as well as new sponsor staff. And next, I want to point out some resources that may help you if you are teleserving full-time at the start of your service. On the Vista campus, you can find a list of guides, videos, blogs, and some articles as well that may be useful for you, and that's especially if you are not accustomed to teleworking or teleserving full-time. We also have a recorded webinar on demand that includes tips and tricks to telework successfully. You can find that on the member webinars page on the Vista campus. And the links to those pages on the campus are being posted to the chat in just a second. Okay. And webinar evaluation. So please, we're just coming up to the Q&A part of this session. So for the evaluation, again, similar to last week, please take a couple of moments. It's really quick to give us feedback on the webinar. We do constantly review the content and we try to make it better for new Vista members in the future. So we love to see your feedback on what worked, what can be improved, what can be expanded upon, and we take that feedback and we try to incorporate it on the very next cohort of Vista members coming in. So thank you in advance for completing that survey. There's a link in the chat right now that Sandy just included, and it also the survey should pop up as you close out of Zoom. So thanks again for your feedback. And looking at our agenda, so yeah, we're getting towards the end. We do want to take a few moments to go over some of the questions that may have come in. So give us a second as Andy and I look to see what questions might be in the queue. Andy, I didn't know if you had noted any. I know Eric, Charles, Gina, and Jake are answering as quick as possible all the questions that come in.
Yeah, so Chris, there were a couple of folks, a handful actually, who asked about time cards, timesheets, do I clock in, and all of that kind of stuff. So do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Sure. So, so you will need to keep track of when you're serving and when you're not. But the system that you use is one that's in use at your project site. So talk to your supervisor. They will have some kind of system. It could be electronic or, you know, a website, or maybe it's just a spreadsheet, or, you know, I don't know. It takes lots of different forms. But your supervisor will be the one who really monitors your time in and time out. And if you take any leave, sick time, or vacation time, all that's managed locally. So talk to your supervisor, and then your supervisor reports to us at headquarters, you know, that you're serving and when you're serving and all of that. So, so that's the simple answer there.
Thanks, Andy. And yeah, as you were answering that, a couple other questions did come in. One I really wanted to point out was a question about when are we going to get the email about enrollment for the health benefit? Great question, and it comes up a lot. And the answer is about a week, probably early next week, like Monday or Tuesday, you'll get an email from IMG, our healthcare administrator, with instructions for signing up for either the healthcare allowance or the health benefit plan. If for any reason you need it this week, ASAP, we recommend just reaching out to IMG. They're gonna probably need to get confirmation that, you know, you're officially serving, that you submitted your oath and all your forms, but they can confirm that with the VISTA member support unit. If you need a temporary card, they can assign a temporary card if you need it this week. But otherwise, early next week is when you'll hear about the healthcare benefits. It's also when you'll be able to access your service letters in your My AmeriCorps account. And it's also, if you select the education award, you can sign up for forbearance for your student loans in your My AmeriCorps account, all in about 1 week.
Great. So a few questions in here about the early service coursework. Those are on the VISTA campus, and they're on the same page where you did the pre-service coursework. So it's the Starting VISTA Service page. And those are intended, you know, our intention is that you would work through those activities really in your first couple of weeks. So this coming week and next week. Some of them are intended as conversations between you and your supervisor. So there's a worksheet, you'll fill in some things and come up with some questions. And then when you sit down with your supervisor, you can, you know, go through those questions together. Something I forgot to mention, I meant to, but I forgot to say it. You don't need to turn those into us or even to your supervisor. They're really, those worksheets are there for your own use and your own benefit. So, you know, you don't have to make them pretty or, you know, use perfect punctuation or anything like that. But again, on the VISTA campus, on the Starting VISTA Service page.
And a couple questions about relocation, about the settling in allowance and the mileage reimbursement. So yeah, just quickly, so for those who were approved to relocate, hopefully you've heard from the VMSU and have returned your relocation form. If not, if you haven't heard from the VMSU, but you are relocating more than 50 miles, please reach out to the VMSU to let them know, and then they can get you that form. In terms of the settling in allowance, that will be included in your first living allowance payment. And the mileage reimbursement is paid out separately. It's still by direct deposit, but you'll have to sign a reimbursement form and return that to the VISTA Member Support Unit. And they may have already, but if not, very shortly, you should get a notification about completing that form to return it. I would say no later than tomorrow. Once you return it, it can take several weeks to process. It can vary, but up to like 6 to 8 weeks, and it'll be direct deposited into your account.
All right, let's see. There are a couple of questions about Vista Gear. So again, you'll get an email with instructions for ordering it, so there's nothing you can do right now. And the gear is really for you to use. I mean, we encourage you to wear the polo shirt, the t-shirt, and the other stuff. There's not really a requirement, so it's not like you have to wear that same one shirt every day. You probably want to talk with your supervisor to get a sense of, what the dress code is and what's appropriate. And, a polo shirt's probably appropriate in a lot of office settings when if you are and when you are back in the office. Or going out to community events. But you can check with them for some of the details about the when.
Okay, and looking through a few more, a quick reminder, because I saw a couple questions about, if the living allowance will affect my Medicare eligibility, or and I think there was another question on disability. So again, no, your living allowance will not affect your benefits for disability, for Medicare, or any benefits in that regard. Your living allowance will not be counted against you there. Now, the one exception, as we talked about last week, is with regards to SNAP benefits, where if you're already receiving SNAP benefits, then very similar. The living allowance will not affect your benefit amount. But if you're just applying for SNAP right now, then the living allowance will be included as income when calculating your benefit amount. That's the one exception, but it will not affect your Medicare eligibility. Andy, are you seeing, I know Eric and Gina and everyone are answering there are a couple questions in here in the queue, but it looks like they're being currently answered. But I didn't know if you see any that we should definitely point out.
I saw another one, Chris. It was about mileage reimbursement. So maybe worth just clarifying that again. So if do you want to go ahead with that? Oh,
go for it. No.
All right. So assuming you're back serving on site, the VISTA program and your organization where you're serving, we're not going to pay to cover your commute to get from home to the office and back. But if there's what we call service-related transportation, so say, as a regular part of what you do, you go out and visit multiple sites in the community, or you go hold community meetings, and you need to take your car or take public transportation to do that, you can get reimbursed for the costs of that. And the process, kind of like with the timesheets, the process is managed by your organization where you're serving. So talk to your supervisor to get the details. It's probably the same process they use for staff members who, have to do some kind of travel or transportation for their work. So those details are handled locally.
Great. Well, Andy, anything else? Oh, one thing I will mention, just because I saw a question on it, was, and I think, Andy, you mentioned this, but with regard to the oath form, if you get a notification that it's there, and you go to My AmeriCorps and you aren't able to access it, it may be due to already being signed in to My AmeriCorps. You might just have to sign out and sign back on in order to be able to enter your information in those fields. So just a quick log out and log back in. Again, it was scheduled for, I think, for 15 minutes after this webinar, but it might be earlier. You might receive that notification earlier. But yeah, we're 5 minutes left. I think we just have a couple of closing slides. If you have questions that are currently in the queue, we'll certainly, I think we'll be able to answer them all. Just a handful right there, but thank you for those questions. And we certainly hope today's discussion helped you build some new connections, clarify some of the complexity of starting your VISTA service, and really helped you know where to find information quickly. And of course, we have sworn you in as official AmeriCorps members, so welcome to the AmeriCorps community. For those who are first-time AmeriCorps members, I know some on this webinar are serving in their second and maybe third year. I think I saw someone mention. And before we depart, we want to leave you with another quote from President Lyndon Johnson. This was also shared at the launch of the VISTA program. On your idealism and on your success rests much of our hope for the final elimination of poverty in our American life. And to that, I would add that your service and commitment to community change as a VISTA gives me hope that our country can eliminate poverty and the injustices that cause and perpetuate it. Thank you so much for serving in AmeriCorps and for your participation today and throughout this VISTA member orientation. We wish you all the success in the world this year. Thank you.
Yeah, you've been a great group. Thank you so much, and all the best in your service.